The cold coffee tasted like old pennies that morning, a metallic prelude to the meeting's true flavor. Marcus, radiating an unsettling calm, circulated the updated shareholder notice. My name, once foundational to every milestone he now glossed over, was relegated to a footnote. He spoke of our collective vision, yet every word extinguished an ember of the professional fire I'd poured into this company. The room buzzed with polite agreement, oblivious to the tremor of betrayal that shook my carefully composed exterior. My contributions, reduced to a lingering, bitter ash. I knew then, silence would be my response, but not my surrender. The silence that followed the initial shock wasn't empty. It was a vacuum filling with a new kind of resolve. I recognized the first wave of despair, the urge to retreat, but almost immediately, something recalibrated deep within me. This wasn't about bitterness or retribution. It was a clarity born from necessity, a shift from passive victimhood to active problem-solving. My instinct for revenge, however fleeting, quickly gave way to a far more potent drive, strategic resolution. Beneath that calm exterior, an immense pressure began to build, not of panic, but of a quiet, unyielding fire. It refused to be doused, instead burning with a steady, strategic heat. Marcus had always been fixated on the visible, the immediate gains. He dismissed my early intellectual property as niche and unscalable. Yet a persistent thought began to crystallize. He'd overlooked a fundamental piece, an original anchor point that now felt increasingly significant. This quiet suspicion solidified into a singular, guiding conviction. The chill of those early meetings still settled in my bones, long after the air conditioning had been turned off. My proposals, always leaning toward disruption, were consistently met with polite skepticism, labeled visionary but risky. I saw potential, they saw liabilities. This wasn't merely a difference in philosophy. It was a deliberate, quiet suppression. Marcus, building his empire on safe bets, harbored a pervasive anxiety beneath his ambition. He genuinely feared what he termed my fiery unpredictability, my willingness to challenge norms, perceiving it as a threat to the conservative, investor-friendly image he meticulously cultivated. He understood the brilliance, yet deemed it too volatile for his controlled narrative. My ousting wasn't about incompetence, but his need for absolute predictability. That constant, subtle dismissal, the stifling of genuinely groundbreaking work, didn't break me. Instead, it ignited a quiet, steady burn. The heat of those past injustices now fueled a resolve colder and sharper than any of their boardroom pronouncements. My ideas might have been deemed risky then, but my presence now was non-negotiable. I was coming to reclaim what was mine. The initial disorienting chaos gave way, not to despair, but to a cold, clear focus. Where uncertainty had paralyzed me, I began to forge ordered precision, constructing a detailed blueprint. For weeks, my evenings were a blur of illuminated screens and legal jargon. Every contract clause, every financial report, line item, and all intellectual property-related emails were scrutinized meticulously. I scheduled discreet, virtual consultations with seasoned IP lawyers, specializing in corporate disputes, ensuring all discussions remained strictly confidential non-disclosure agreements. Their expert counsel transformed my anxieties into a coherent strategy document. My outward calm was a carefully constructed facade, a strategic silence masking the immense, intricate work behind the scenes. They saw retreat. I was building. Have you ever felt dismissed, only to realize that quiet conviction is your greatest strength? Let me know in the comments. The pieces were all laid out. Now it was time to activate the sequence. Please provide the word allocation for the seismic shift section. I need the exact word count to fulfill your request accurately. The quiet hum of my new routine was abruptly broken, not by noise, but by an email from Marcus. Its subject line, "Urgent, what are you doing?" immediately signaled a distinct shift in dynamics. His words inside were a bewildered, defensive tangle of accusations and thinly veiled threats, utterly devoid of the casual confidence he once exuded. He was clearly rattled. A terse voicemail followed a day later, his voice tight, lacking its usual bravado, demanding I stop whatever this is. I listened, noting the unmistakable tremor in his tone. There was no satisfaction, only a quiet confirmation that my strategic moves were hitting their mark. True to form, the predictable legal cease and desist letter from his attorneys arrived a few days later, formal and demanding, citing frivolous claims. It was a standard first response, easily anticipated. I filed it away calmly, another piece of evidence. His noise was a desperate counterpoint to my deliberate silence, reinforcing my controlled power. The game had begun, and I was ready for his next move. Marcus, predictably, escalated, flooding my network with calls to discredit me and reassert control. But I knew his financial Achilles heel, his aversion to any cost, not yielding immediate profit. Protracted legal battles were a weight he simply couldn't bear. Swiftly, my team filed a preemptive injunction on the patent, preventing its monetization. Simultaneously, a public statement detailing the dispute and liabilities reached key investors, board members, and industry analysts. Marcus expected a noisy skirmish, I offered a strategic war of attrition. The financial and temporal commitment to respond to the injunction and manage public fallout exposed his vulnerabilities. As costs mounted and inquiries flowed, the ground truly cracked beneath his feet, revealing the precarious foundation of his arrogance. The air in the boardroom on that Tuesday morning was thick with an expectation I had once longed for, but this time it was my own. Marcus sat across the gleaming mahogany table, his expression a practiced mask of dismissive impatience, just as it had been years ago when I first presented the innovative biometric security protocol. He barely glanced up as I began, accustomed to my silence. But the silence I now offered was different. It held the quiet weight of conviction. I laid the notarized copies onto the table. My original patent registration certificate, dated 6 years prior, for the very technology that underpinned their flagship product. The patent Marcus had forgotten to properly secure the rights for. His feigned boredom evaporated into a raw, dawning comprehension. The color drained from his face as I then presented the executed investment term sheet from a rival firm, outlining their commitment to my relaunched vision for My Times company, built directly upon this secured intellectual property. The room, once a chamber of exclusion, now hummed with a different kind of power mine. I detailed how we would pivot, innovate, and reclaim the market share they had squandered, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. You thought you extinguished a flame. You merely contained a volcano. What volcano are you ready to unleash? The finality of my words left no room for negotiation, only for the inevitable unfolding.